Yeah, today we're just having an intermediate session. Okay, not sure if you guys can see my screen. Type Y or yes if you guys can see my screen. If so, then let's get started with today's session. Okay, so just basic housekeeping rules for the guys who are not familiar with them. If you do have a question, you can type the question in the chat, right? I'll repeat your question, then sort of like have a conversation from there on. If not, okay, if you're struggling with the chat, you can just click on, I think it's raise your hand. There's a button that says raise your hand somewhere over there, and from there you'll be able to, I will be able to see it firstly, and then obviously I'll unmute your mic and you can speak and we can sort of like have a conversation regarding this whole thing. And if I can't answer your question like I usually say, then I will let you know. Okay, so yeah, it feels good to be back on these live sessions again. Yeah, hopefully we'll make it a productive one. Right, so today our main topic is going to be sort of like the use of trend lines. Right, my PC is running a bit slow. I'm not sure what the issue is, but it should get us through tonight's session. But like I said, tonight's session is trend lines, right? So there's a couple of uses that you can sort of like apply to the market to optimize or to effectively use trend lines, basically. So we'll just be taking a look at that. Now, what I will be showing you guys is how I use the trend line. Okay, I'll be showing you guys how. Okay, I think someone raised their hand. Not sure who it was. Can't quite see right now. I think they already lowered their hand. Okay, you can just type your question in there, or you can just raise your hand again. I'm not sure who raised their hand because I was going to unmute the mic so you can speak. So as I was saying, use of trend lines, right? Can become a very effective tool if used properly. Just like anything else, just like with the Fibonacci, just like with the RSI, just like with basic candlestick patterns, if you use them correctly, then I mean you will have some success using them, and so like combine them with a few other elements, then you can have something that is really profitable. Now, there's a lot of different ways that I've seen people draw trend lines. So what I'm going to be showing you guys is the way that I do them. And hopefully you'll be able to try that out and see if it works effectively for you as well. So right now, we're on the 4-hour time frame. This is the Euro GBP. And this chart basically, as you can see, has been in a bit of a decline since I think around the 11th of September, the week of the 11th of September. Let me just get rid of the grid and let's just throw in our period separator there. Okay, let's throw in our period separator. So it has been a couple of weeks of decline. So to be exact, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 weeks of decline. And we can pretty much see where the entire move actually started. So for me personally, using a trend line is more effective when you're using candlestick charts. All right, so I'll show you guys why I believe that's the case. But to be effective, you must use candlestick charts instead of, let's say, your line chart or your bar chart, or let's say your Heikin Ashi candles. Now, the aim of the trend line is to be able to obviously identify where the trend is going. So you need to be able to spot the swing highs, the swing lows. If you're not too familiar with that, there's a session that we previously did where we looked at the zigzag, right? The zigzag is a very effective tool, as I said, if used properly. So it just highlights the swing highs and swing lows of the markets, right? The most recent swing highs and most recent swing lows. And for me, a trend line doesn't really make sense if you're going to be drawing it on the smaller time frame. It's better if you start off on the higher time frame, because obviously the long-term trend will be evident on the higher time frames and not so much on the 5-minute and 30-minute. Not saying you can't use it there, but if you want to swing trade or position trade, then you definitely be looking at the trend line on the 4-hour, daily, or probably the 1 week, right, the weekly time frame. So those 3 time frames will probably work best. So for us, let's just go on through to, okay, let's just go on through to the 4 hour. Okay, Rizal, I can see you have your hand up. What you need to do is click on join audio or join phone audio, because I'm trying to unmute your mic, but I can't because you haven't clicked on join audio. So just click on join audio and I'll just unmute your mic, and then yeah, you'll be able to speak. Right, so you can find the trend line on draw trend line, obviously, and this is the most recent swing high. Okay, this is the highest swing high that we can see on the market, and we want that trend line to be as close to that swing high as humanly possible. Okay, but as you'll see, it doesn't always line up perfectly. Okay, sometimes it's more of an art than a science, which means you'll have to adjust a few things. You can't say, okay, I need the trend line to touch every single swing high, because the market just doesn't move like that. It might make a swing high and might miss the previous swing high by 10 pips, and over here it might miss it by 40 pips. So you need to be a bit flexible when it comes to that, but you want to have a lot of touches when it comes to the market itself. So you need to have a few touches in order for us to have a sort of like reliable trend line. So as you can see, the market is moving down, okay, and we draw the trend line. Okay, guys, noticed where I took the trend line from. I didn't take it from that swing high there, because as you'll see, this was a pin. Okay, this was a pin bar. So this is basically a spike, right? And we want as many touches as humanly possible. So if I were to put my trend line over here, okay, we'd only have 2 touches. Okay, so we'd only have 2 touches there, but okay, I'm hoping everyone can see me or can see my screen and hear my voice. Okay, because it seems that Notlanda, you have a question. Just answer me via chat, or just make sure you have your join phone audio. There's a button on the interface that says join phone audio or join computer audio. If not, I just sent you a message via chat, so just respond to that so we can have a conversation there. Okay, so there's 2 touches over there, boom, right? You can see them, and aside from that, there's nothing else. Now, let's draw a second trend line, which is, let's use a blue one. Let's just change the color on this one to blue instead of yellow, so we can see the difference there. Okay, let's look. I'm not sure if there's turquoise or what. Okay. All right, so you can see over here we have quite a few touches, right? So unlike the previous chart that we actually just looked at now, or the previous trend line that we just looked at now, we have a couple of touches. We have one here, right? We have one there. We have 3. We have 4. We have 5. This is technically 6. This is 7. This is 8. This is 9. And you can say that this is 10. Okay. As opposed to just these 2 on the yellow trend line. Okay. Now, it's very important to understand that sometimes the trend line won't line up properly. Okay. There's no particular angle where the trend line is supposed to slant or how it's supposed to slant. If the market is trending down very aggressively, the trend line will look a lot something like this. But if the market is making swing lows that are really coming in back deep, then we'll probably have a trend line that's a little bit flat, like it's more horizontal than it is vertical. Okay, so just guys need to take note of that. Now, with these touches at these levels, what we are looking for is firstly to determine where the trend is going, and also it does help us to make trading decisions because the trend line on the upper level will act as some sort of a resistance, and the trend line on the lower levels, for example, will act as a support, right? So we could just say basically if the market pulls up here, we expect it to bounce off that level again, okay? Right. So this is how the market usually behaves. So again, when the market comes back up to that trend line, then we're most likely to see some sort of a rejection away from that level. Okay. As I usually say, the market moves 2 steps forward and 1 step backwards. The market just doesn't go in a straight line up or in a straight line down. Okay, you're gonna have situations where the market might drop 100 pips and pull back 60 pips. Right. It might drop 100 pips and pull back 80 pips. Right. As long as the swing high is the previous swing high is still intact, then the trend line is still valid. Okay. So in this Euro GBP market that we're looking at, if we go on to, let's say we've drawn the trend line, it's on the 4-hour time frame, and let's say we decide to look at it on the 1-hour time frame. Okay, it will look a bit smoother, and we can start to see that the market sometimes goes above the trend line and then pulls back and closes below the trend line, right? Here as well, the market made a spike, well, 2 in fact, and then pulled back, right? Market traded above the trend line and then pulled back again. This one traded above the trend line, closed, and then immediately came back inside the trend line. So almost all these markets traded above, and then immediately the very next candle, or the very same candle, it moved back inside that trend line. Okay, so let's just say we get rid of this one and just focus on this. I think the color is turquoise, but what I see is blue. Now, with that sort of information, we can really then start to make sense of, okay, how then do we utilize a trend line to actually make trading decisions? Okay, now the simplest way, easiest way, is to use it as a resistance or a support. So in the case where the trend line is moving above price and the swing highs are not being broken, then we'd use it as a resistance, right? So some sort of resistance where we expect the market to pull up to the trend line, and once it comes back to the trend line, it rejects, right? It pulls back towards the downside. Okay. And then once it makes a swing low and then comes back to that same trend line again, then there is a possibility that the market will then drop down from that point again. Okay. I hope I'm making sense. Okay, so now that would be one application of how to use the trend line. And for me, this is more of a favorite because it's very basic, it's very simple. Obviously, you do need some practice, especially if you're a bit new to the industry, so like work behind the ears. You will grasp it probably after a week or 2 of using it consistently. Then you should be able to make draw in some nice proper trend lines with nice trading opportunities. Right, now, as we can see, like I said, the market rejected, right, pulled back down and traded below the trend line. So this is exactly how you utilize a support and resistance, because sometimes the market trades above a resistance point and then so if once it trades above the resistance point, the important thing is that it pushes back below and closes below that resistance point there. Okay, so obviously it's going to leave that sort of like spikish type of candle. Okay, it's going to leave that spikish kind of candle, and that's going to provide us with sort of like the catalyst to say, okay, this market over here is sort of like in an uptrend or it's in a downtrend. Okay. So let's say now we draw a trend line, right? Let's say we extend this trend line over here towards the downside. Okay, let's just say we extend this trend line towards the downside. Okay, let me just shift it just a bit. Okay, let me just place it there. Now, anytime the market trades back into that trend line, right? Every time the market trades back into the trend line, there's a high probability that the market will drop, giving us a trading opportunity. This is where we want to be selling. So we want to be selling at that blue trend line just above the downtrend, because essentially most of the time we want to be in line with where the major trend is going, right? So this is on daily time frame, right? So on the daily down, probably the moves on the 1 hour time frame or the 15-minute time frame also going to be a bit aggressive towards the downside. Okay. All right. So as I said, this is essentially how a trend line basically works. Now, as I said before, though, right in the beginning, there is no one way of placing a trend line, because someone else might pull it up and then place it somewhere over there, and that might work as well. But for me personally, I like to see a couple of touches on that trend line, right? Trend line is more solid to me if I have a couple of touches. You know, we don't want to see candles trading above the trend line, then moving away from it and then pulling back down. One candle up is okay, and then the very next candle pulls down, that's fine. But if the market goes up, closes up, and then continues to go up, okay, then it means that, I mean, it's not that good of a trend line. Okay. All right, you guys have any questions so far? Okay, any questions, guys? All right, so now a trend line can get broken. Okay, so just like how a support or resistance level will be broken, the trend line can get, it doesn't mean that every time the market comes in, it's hitting a brick wall, basically. It's sort of like a plastic wall more than a brick wall, and the market will break above the trend line when the trend changes. You get me? So if the trend changes from down and then goes up, then that basically means that the trend line has to be broken. And one of the easiest ways for you to be able to see if a trend line has been broken or the trend is changing is by looking at what we call the retest, right? So the market moves above the trend line. So let's just say this exact candle that we're looking at right now, okay? So it goes up, right? Hits the trend line, okay? And then the very next candle, it moves up above the trend line, okay? And it pulls back down towards that trend line, okay? And then is rejected right off that trend line, okay? Now that typically means that we have what's called a breakout, right? So that's a breakout, just like how you'd have a breakout using support or resistance, you have a breakout of the trend line. So the trend line then would probably change as the market makes these similar types of moves going upward, okay? All right, makes sense. So if we were to look at an example of just where a trend line break or what a trend line break would actually look like, we'd probably have to look at something along these lines, right? So you can see here, right, from this swing low. Okay, remember, we want to see a couple of touches. Okay, want to see a couple of touches, right? So we'd have to probably fix it something along these lines. Okay, and you can see that the market traded below the trend line here on the bottom right, but there wasn't any sort of rejection and the market starts to move away. What we want to see is the market bouncing off that trend line, right? This is how a support level would actually work. The market bounces off the trend line 5-6 times and it finally moves below the trend line. Now, if you try and trade here, sometimes this is going to happen, right? So if you're just looking for the candle that closes below the low of the trend line, right, and you'll go short there, sometimes the market will pull back towards the upside, retest that trend line, and then start to move down. Okay, which is why then we need to have a bit of patience, let the market move away from the lower part of the trend line, but pull back into the lower part of the trend line, okay, reject a bit there, and then start to move towards a different direction. So this change then from being an uptrend for about, I don't know, 6 months to being a downtrend for like 3 months or so. Okay, now it's not a lot of time, but thought we had a question there. Right, so it's not a lot of time, but it does basically mean that we were in an uptrend and the trend direction has changed to down. So from upwards where we're buying to down where we should be selling. Okay, because the sells, right, or the drops rather, are going to be a whole lot more aggressive on a downtrend than the buys, right? The buys will, the market will go up, it will retrace, but not as aggressively as how the drops are going to be. Okay. All right, makes sense, guys. Okay, any questions? Okay, any questions, guys? Okay, still see non-client has her hand raised. Okay, like I said, if you have a question, just type it, or just make sure you've clicked on join phone audio or join computer audio. I'll be able to help you out from there. Okay, I'll unmute your mic so you can speak. Right now, I can't do that. All right, so yeah, like I said, I probably might extend the sessions to the course of the weekend, but I'll let you guys know in terms of what the times are going to be. Make sure you are on the YouTube channel watching those videos. I've made 3 different playlists for guys who are trading NASDAQ, for the guys who are beginners, and for the guys who are just learning the strategy as a whole. So I'll compile a playlist of the videos that you can watch from start to finish, and you should be really clued up about what's going on in terms of those 3 sort of like different approaches. So like I said, everything is back online, right? The signal group is on, activated. I think it's the copy trading that's also back on, activated, and also the guys who are trading using the trading robot, and that should be working, and updates are coming over during the course of the weekend, so everyone will be emailed during that. So if you guys have any questions whatsoever, there is the WhatsApp number, right? You can text, I don't know, to around a bit later, maybe an hour or 2, right, maximum. So around, let's say, I don't know, 9:30 or 10:30 maximum. So if you can text around that time, then you should get a response immediately. If not, you can text in the morning. So if there's anything you don't understand, if you missed any part of the session, we will be posting the link in the Telegram channel once I'm finished uploading the video onto the YouTube channel. Okay. All right. Okay, guys, if you guys don't have any questions, I'll be ending off tonight's session here. Right, just need to attend to one of the guys in the one-on-one classes. Otherwise, I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the evening. I'll announce the date or the times and the day that we're going to be doing the weekend sessions. Those will be a bit longer because we haven't done a live session in quite a while. So I feel like we should be doing more of those. All right, guys. Thank you guys for coming through and enjoy the rest of the evening. Cheers.